we're hearing about these DOGE dividend checks that would be 20% back to taxpayers, 20% to pay down the debt. 60% is left. Who gets that?
When you achieve savings, you can either return it to taxpayers, you can return it to our debtors, or it can be cycled into next year's budget. You can just transfer it into the next fiscal window and then lower the overall spending level. That means that you can achieve a permanent savings that way, and that reduces the deficit.
On these potential checks that you might send out from DOGE, is there a concern as you're thinking through this that they could be inflationary?
Oh, absolutely not. And so if we reduce government spending, then that's, reduces inflation. And if you give people money, then they're going to save a bunch of it. And when they save it, then that also reduces demand and reduces inflation.
White House officials explaining President Trump's idea to pass DOGE's savings onto the American taxpayer. House Speaker Mike Johnson also weighed in, though. Listen to this.
Well, look, I mean, politically, that would be great for us, you send everybody a check. But if you think about our core principles, right, fiscal responsibility is what we do as conservatives. That's our brand. And we have a $36 trillion federal debt. We have a giant deficit that we're contending with. I think we need to pay down the credit card, right? That's what I think we need to do.
Joining me now is Missouri Congressman Eric Burlison. Congressman, what is your reaction to that? In particular, Mike Johnson saying, look, $36 trillion in debt, time to pay down the credit card.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that we're at a situation where we would love to give the American people a 20% dividend check and send that money back. But we're not in a situation to do that because unless we cut spending, as was mentioned before. And if we don't cut spending, then that money that we send back to the American people would absolutely be inflationary, in my opinion. And so I think that we need to cut spending. And the sad part, though, is last night I understand in the Senate that in the vote-a-rama that half of the Republicans rejected an amendment by Rand Paul to cut $1.4 trillion in spending over the next 10 years. So I thought that was a very modest projected cut out of a $89 trillion spend. You can't cut $1.4 trillion. And I would hope that the Senate, Republicans get on board with the idea that we have got to cut spending if we're going to cut inflation.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because overnight, and you're right about Rand Paul, what happened here, and this is the Senate was up all night. This is their vote-a-rama. They do this, this happens a lot. But they passed the $345 billion budget blueprint. So it provides border and defense money. That's where the spending is that you're talking about that Rand Paul called out. But President Trump wants the Senate to get behind the House's budget bill, which funds all parts of the agenda. And then you had Vice President Vance talk about it yesterday. So let's listen to this.
I actually talked to the president about this yesterday, and he said to me, look, it's very rare that you can get 2 reconciliation bills done in one Congress, which is why he thinks we've got to do a lot with that one big, beautiful bill, that first reconciliation package that we're going to get through the House and the Senate. It's going well. It's early, right? This stuff takes time to put together. I think, if you had a record pace reconciliation bill, we would get this thing done in May or in June. I think we're on track to do that.
I mean, to be clear, and I'm glad you brought this up, $340 billion blueprint. Now, Republican members of the Hispanic Congressional Caucus sent a letter to Speaker Johnson. They're voicing concerns about potential cuts to Medicaid and other essential programs in the budget, Congressman. It's pretty much easy to say here that anytime somebody talks about cuts to Medicaid or to Medicare, or people get up in arms and voters get upset. Your reaction?
I agree with President Trump. We don't want to touch Social Security and the benefits for Social Security or the benefits for Medicare for people that truly need it. But I don't think that anyone would question whether we should audit and determine, voter or eligibility. For example, what Musk has discovered, there may be thousands of individuals, if not, close to 1 million individuals who may not be qualified to receive Social Security checks, and they're undermining a system that should be available for the people that truly need it. And I would hope that my Hispanic friends our colleagues are not going to be clinging to the Biden administration's policies where they expanded it and tried to put a whole class of citizens on welfare who are healthy, young, able-bodied individuals. We need these individuals to get back to work and protect the system for people that truly need it, those who are disabled, who are aged, who are blind, who are children. And so I think that we need to get our priorities in order.
Well, and I think, too, when you look at Medicaid, and we've already heard some colleagues of yours express, concern, and I think it's very valid, that if you start to make these massive cuts, say it is to Medicaid, for example, that it would actually hurt people that depend on that for their health insurance, for their health benefits. That's very fair. But at the same time, the waste and the fraud, in particular in Social Security, that I think most Americans could get behind. Are we moving too fast, in your opinion? Do you think that we're moving too fast, or do you think we need to take a little more time to give Elon Musk time to do his due diligence and to find out where the abuse is happening? And what time frame is that when you've got this push by Donald Trump to get the big, beautiful bill all together? And that's on you. Elon Musk can make recommendations, but it's going to be on you in Congress to actually make it happen.
Yeah, for years we've been saying that if we cut all of discretionary spending, which would be the DOGE cuts, the Elon Musk cuts, that's discretionary mostly. If we cut all of that, we still won't balance the budget. We have a deficit of $2 trillion. So we have got to touch our mandatory spending. If you take Social Security off the board, that's fine. If you take Medicare off the board, that's fine. But eventually you got to start finding somewhere in mandatory spending. And the responsible and thoughtful way to do that is to identify places in Medicaid that Joe Biden expanded into a population of people that truly did not need it or deserve it and should be working and getting employment to get health insurance from the private sector. These are young people who we need to be in the workforce.
Okay, let's move on to this. So you attended the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship Conference in London. Energy Secretary Chris Wright spoke, and he slammed the UK's 2050 net zero climate deadline. He called it a sinister goal. You are also set to lead an oversight committee hearing next week, and it is going to focus on strengthening America's energy reliability. So what are the priorities here? We had a guest on earlier on the show, talked about the expansion of nuclear energy, the responsible use of nuclear waste, for example. Where are you going with this? And what do you think this committee is going to need to do first?
We've had a lost decade in productivity. I mean, we've been playing around with all this Green New Deal stuff and all this woke culture. It has really set our industry back. It's set our economy back almost a decade. And it's time that we wake up. And I'm so grateful that Trump is ushering this in. But look, we've got an energy crunch. I mean, when you talk to manufacturers, when you talk to utilities, they don't have the supply to provide all the manufacturing industry to come back to reshore to the United States. They don't currently have the supply to power up all of the AI data centers that we're going to need. We're going to need to have a critical moment in the United States where we truly start investing a great deal of money if we're going to be an economy that continues to outpace China. You
also, Congressman, were appointed to the House's Declassification and Transparency Task Force. So what's that going to be?
Yeah, that's a great team, being led by Ana Paulina Luna from Florida. Our goal is to identify and try to make disclose as much as possible from some of these secrets that they're long overdue, including the JFK files, the files on the RFK assassination, the MLK assassination. The American people are demanding the Epstein list, and they demand to know what's going on with these things that are flying around in our skies.
It's going to be very interesting what you uncover, and more importantly, what you release to the public on all of those cases. Congressman Eric Burlison. Congressman, thank you.